So in this video, I'd like to talk about shot-specific lighting in Unreal and the basic workflow, which is paralleling how you would do shot lighting in CG in general, is that you have your overall lighting where you, here on this scene, I have just kind of lighting that applies to everything, and I set that up, and then you're still going to run into situations where you're going to need to change the lighting on a shot by shot basis. And that takes two forms really. One is that, as you can imagine, with all of the lush vegetation that I have in the scene, that there's going to be some cases where a particular leaf or petal or whatever is going to be potentially blocking the camera in a particular shot. And so you're going to need to toggle the visibility of objects per shot so that they're not blocking the camera. And we're going to take a look at how to do that in the sequencer in Unreal. And then another thing that can happen is that the lighting in general looks good, but you need to have certain little tweaks to the lighting on a per shot basis, and we're also going to look at how to do that both by keyframing things shot specifically and also by spawning additional lights into a particular shot sequence. So let's just dive into that. What we're going to begin with is, first of all, how to write out a camera animation from Maya, and then how to bring that camera animation from Maya into Unreal. So before we jump into Unreal, just let me say a quick word about exporting out cameras from Maya to bring into Unreal. If we come into the export settings for an FBX file, then what we're going to want to do is turn on animation and also have on bake animation, and then we put in the frame start and end for our animation sequence and export that out. Now, if you have just a single, like a still camera, so there's not animation on the camera, then what you should do is you should nevertheless have one keyframe at frame 1 keyed so that it's locked down and it's not going to, otherwise what could happen is it could accidentally move. It tends to not read well in Unreal and you get errors, so you definitely want to have at least one key on your still camera, and then you would again come into the export selection, and you don't need to bake the animation, there isn't any, but you do need to have animation selected to export that out. So next in Unreal, we need to create a level sequence. In here, add level sequence. I have here the different shots folders here, and so I want to come into here and I'm going to make shot 80, so I'm going to add a folder. So then I'm going to go into the folder and I'm going to put in the name of my sequence. So it's shot 80, begins at frame 638 and goes to frame 708, and I've tagged it as a shot with the ground showing, and I save that. Then create a camera. I'm gonna rename the camera Cam 80, and then right click, import, and go to where I have my FBX. So let me actually change this. Well, yeah, it's weird that it's not showing me the extensions on here, but these are FBX files. And I go to shot 80 and I open it up. Now these are the options I want. I do want to convert the scene units. I do want to replace the track, but I don't want to match to name only because it's not going to match to this camera. And I don't want to create a camera because I already have one. So import, and then I need to come into here because it's all super blurry. So I'm just going to search for focus and change it from manual to disable the depth of field, and I'm going to change this to 24 frames per second. So rather than setting those for each individual camera, it'd be nice to set them both globally. So let's look at how to do that. For the frame rate, you can come into Edit, Project Settings, Engine, Level Sequence, and then set default display rate to 24 frames per second. Just type that in there. And then that will create, when it makes a new camera, that new camera will be created at 24 frames per second rather than the default of 30. Regarding setting the depth of field, what you can do is use the command line here, and if I type in R depth of field, and I just choose quality and hit enter, you can see what it's set to now. It's set to 2, and here it's blurry, and that's because the focal distance is on, set to like super close up, and it's set to manual. And if I then come into here and set the value to 0, then it's completely in focus, and these are still set to not what we want, but it doesn't matter because it kind of just overrides it generally for every single camera in the scene. You don't have to set it individually, which is nice. By the way, I'm sure that you know why we're doing 24 frames per second, because we're doing film, but as far as why we're disabling the depth of field, that is because we're going to be doing that depth of field later in Nuke, and we want to have cryptomats working properly, and so we have to disable that in all of our renders so that we can then just have like meticulous control. This is all covered in another video that I'm going to put a little link to here, and you can check that out. So that's how you would create the shot, read the camera into it, and so on. And once you have that all set up, then the lighter is able to go in and make whatever shot specific lighting adjustments that they need to. So what they would do is they would come into here, find the shot they want to work on. Let's work on shot 30, and then it pops it into the sequencer here. You would click on the camera button here, and then that pops you into that particular camera. And then we're ready to dive into how to do the individual tweaks to the shot lighting. And the first thing we want to look at is visibility toggles. So let's next take a look at how to set up visibility toggles on a shot. If we look at the animatic on shot grid, we can see that we have here this flower that's going to be blocking our actor, the little bug. So what I'm going to do is select it. It also selects this little guy here, which is probably a good thing. And I'm going to also select this guy here, and I'm going to drag these both into here. Then we're going to make an override. So I'm going to come into here, and let's see, let's go into the track. Actor hidden in game is the property that we're going to add to this. So we add actor hidden in game here, and we're going to also add it onto this guy, actor hidden in game. And then here we are on frame 0. We're going to deselect this and then click this to make a keyframe for it. And then turn this off and keyframe. And that's how you can have these overrides of visibility overrides to toggle on and off objects that are blocking your camera. In addition to being able to hide objects in a particular camera shot and also animate things in a particular camera shot, keyframe them in a particular position, for example, which you do by just going to whatever it is that you want to affect. Like here, I click on this thing here, and you can click on these little buttons here and add keyframes for stuff. So if you, for example, want to keyframe the intensity of one of your lights, you could go find the light in here. So say skylight, and then go to the intensity scale for it and just hit keyframe, for the particular sequence that you're in. Let me just really quickly show you what that's going to do. So skylight selected, intensity, I hit keyframe, and you can see here now that if I scroll down, it's added in the skylight into here and set a keyframe for it, and the intensity is set to 1. And so now let's change it now, and I'm going to hit keyframe again, and now it's been set to 2. And however, do notice that it is not spawned. It doesn't have the lightning bolt like these other lights have lightning bolts, and the camera has a lightning bolt. And we're going to come back to that in a second, but just wanted to sort of show you what that looks like. And then if I then go out of this into, I don't know, let's just jump into some other sequence here, and you look over at the skylight here, and you look at the intensity, and it's back to 1. So it's only affecting that camera that I'm in. But another thing you can do, which is really cool, is you can spawn an object or a light into a sequence. And so you can see here that I've spawned a rect light into the sequence 330 here, and you can see here it's illuminating this. So this is the camera, and it's just getting a little bit of a bounce light, kind of bluish bounce light into here. And the way that you do that is you just go to whatever it is, say here's a light, and you just take the light and you just drag it into the sequence, and then it has this little lightning bolt on it. That means that it's a spawned object, and then you can take your light and move it to where you want it to be and adjust it and everything, and it's only going to appear in this particular camera sequence. So it's sort of shot specific lighting. So let me end with discussing how the level sequences are saved in Unreal and how the organization of them works. So we have over in the outliner something that's really very parallel to the outliner in Maya, meaning that anything in here is associated with the level, which would be parallel to a Maya file. So all the stuff in the outliner in Maya is all part of the Maya file. All the stuff that is in the outliner here is part of the level, which is a single unit that gets saved in Unreal, similar to how a Maya file is a single unit that gets saved. And in that we have I have a folder that I made for just sort of organizational purposes inside of here, and in here you see all the different shots. And these are, if I click on this, it should tell you the type. And the type that we see here is, this is a level sequence actor. And a level sequence consists of 2 things. One of them is the actor, which lives here. And so if I go to the actor for the shot that I'm on here, this is, I currently have shot 330 loaded. into the sequencer editor. And so we come into here and we find shot 330, and we look down here, and this is the details panel. And the details panel is a lot like the attribute editor in Maya. And we see here, let me just sort of scooch this stuff up here. We see here the level sequence asset, which is associated with the actor. So this is an actor, and the actor is kind of part of the level, and basically just says in this level we're using this asset, which is a sequence asset, and it shows you where that lives. And that, if you click on the browse to little dude here, then it takes you over to the content browser. The content browser is much more parallel to here, just sort of a Windows browser, because all of these files are actually saved on disk separately. So if I come into here and say show an explorer, I can open up a Windows Explorer, and there it is. There's the U asset for this particular shot. And what that means practically is that anything that we do in here, all of the stuff we've been doing, the spawning a light or creating a visibility toggle for this field poppy here, and so on and so forth, setting keyframes for things, all of that is part of this level sequence asset, and therefore can be saved separately, which means that you can have a team of lighters and they're assigned to a particular shot and they're doing their thing on that level sequence asset, and they save that asset separately from another lighter who is working on shot 203 or whatever, and they then are also saving their separate thing. And the thing that gets all saved together is this here, the sequence actor, which is where you're kind of associating it with. So it's very similar to the way that like you'll have textures in Maya saved separately on disk, and then you read them into the Maya scene, and then that Maya scene is saved all out at once. For what it's worth, if you're working in something like Perforce where you have source control, you can actually use a thing that's referred to as OFPA, which stands for one file per actor, and then that lets you actually save out separate little things for this. But frankly, as far as sequences are concerned, it really doesn't matter, because all this is just a link, similar to the way that you have a link to a texture in a Maya file. That's really not the thing that has all the nice details in it. This is the asset, and the asset is already saved separately. So that's really nice just to know about, so that you know where things go and how they're saved, so you don't kind of like save on top of somebody else and mess somebody up in their work. So the basic workflow would be that you would first have one person create all of the different shot cameras, and that would then be linked to the level using the actors. And then once that's all set up, like I was demoing in the first part of the video, then that's where each lighter would come in and do the adjustment to their assigned shot using the sequencer asset. The follow-up to that would be that when you come into, let's say here, choose files to save, and it says no changes saved. So let me make a change to save here. So I'll come into the rect light and I will change its intensity. I'll make a keyframe for it and change its intensity to 2000. And then I'll come into here and I'll say choose file to save, and it says here that I'm saving out this level sequence, and here's the level sequence I'm saving out, and I can go, yeah, that's what I want to do. But if I came into here and I saw that, I don't know, I came into here and I accidentally moved this up a little bit and came into here and choose files to save, and it's saying, okay, I'm about to save the level and the level sequence. Well, I don't want to do that. So you could just say, all right, I'm going to, whoops-a-daisy, here. I'm going to save out just the thing I want to save out.